Yeah, I think we always have to be obviously happy when we've won and celebrate the wins. I think there's still lots of work for us to do. I think there was moments where we played really well. I think second half we allowed the game to get too stretched. We started forcing play and we didn't have the connections that we needed. And I think because they came open, we allowed our distances to get too open, and then our passing game suffered, and then we started going long, and we don't need to play long. Like, we need to play on the floor, and we need to make sure we retain possession to create chances. But we scored 3 goals, we kept a clean sheet, limited them to not a lot. But yeah, I think there's work to do, especially in the second half.
How would you assess Adriana Leon's game? She created a lot, she left a few defenders in the dust. Your thoughts on her?
I thought she was excellent tonight. It's one of the best performances I've seen from her. I thought the timing of coming off the front, getting turned, receiving, creativity in and around the box is what we need. I think she probably could have had another goal, you know, if she finishes that one at the end. But I thought, yeah, a very, very good performance from her.
I'll go Gemma.
Coach, I'm wondering if you could comment a little bit more on the atmosphere. Obviously, the first time coaching the community. What did you think of the atmosphere, particularly when Julia scored and maybe something there?
Yeah, listen, really pleased for Julia to score at home. I think she's got fantastic feet, fantastic ability. I thought the crowd was good. I'd love to see more people here supporting the team. I think we can drive attendances a lot more. This team deserves it. So, yeah, the atmosphere was good. Can it be better? Absolutely. But the fans that were here were incredible.
And you heard so much from the players yesterday about being brave. Did you see enough of that tonight?
Yeah, at times. I think when we go long, we stop being brave. So I think, you know, staying on the ball for longer periods, moving them. I thought we played between lines at times, and I think we just got to, we've done okay to a point, but then it's like the final action, the final pass sometimes. And the surface was quite quick. So sometimes that final action was an overhit pass, or when we could get someone facing forward in goal, we give the ball away, I think, too many times unopposed. So I think, yeah, I'm pleased with certain aspects. I think there's lots to be done in terms of improving.
Casey, I wanted to talk about the rhythm of the match. Before, you were talking about with a team like Argentina, they were going to be physical and gritty. Out there, it looked like you guys were the physical and gritty team throughout pretty much the entirety of the match. Were you a bit surprised by the way that Argentina came out a bit timidly, or were you sort of prepared for having that upper hand?
I thought they would be more physical, to be honest. But I actually was really pleased. We put our physicality into the game. We stopped them playing. We probably gave away too many fouls, which actually disturbed our rhythm at times. But I don't want to criticise that, because I want us to be hard to break down and hard to beat. And I thought, you know, we did that well at times. It was, again, second half we got a bit more stretched, so we didn't get up and around the ball enough. So, but yeah, I was pleased with that. It's now like when we win it, what we do with it and how we can keep it to control the tempo.
And then looking ahead, you have another match against them in a few days. What are you hoping to maybe see differently from the team, especially maybe in the later stages when you saw the team kind of get a little tired there?
Well, I think we've got to learn lessons as we go. We've had kind of a rhythm of playing well in the first half and then disruption in the second half. So changes are going to happen, you know, and I think, you know, when changes come into the game, sometimes that can happen naturally. But actually, I always believe changes coming in can have a really positive impact. So it's like, how do we stick to our principles and our game? You know, we stop taking throws quickly. We stop getting the ball down and playing quickly. So how do we keep that going? And also recognising, like, it was a big pitch, so we can't press everything. So being compact at times and just keeping in shape conserves energy. You know, so we then can keep the ball better and conserve our energy that way. And staying connected, I think, is a big part of that. And if we stop turning the ball over and we control possession, we'll be less tired because we're not then chasing and having to run back 40, 50 yards.
Argentina's goalie played an incredible game. Potentially facing her again in a couple days, how do you help to wear her down and try to produce more offense even though it was...
She made some unbelievable saves tonight. One of them I felt sorry for because she made a great save and then we scored and it was an unbelievable save. Like, she was outstanding. I think it's about how we can maybe look at finishing in corners a little bit more. You know, sometimes it was in her bubble, so to speak. They were still fantastic saves. But we've got to create more chances, that's for sure. And then it's about the clinicalness that we have in and around the box.
You haven't been in the position that long, but you've got a good sample size of competitions now under your belt. As you sort of look forward and roadmap towards World Cup qualifying, where do you see this team now and where it needs to be by the time that rolls around?
Hard to tell because of the opponents that we're playing, to be honest. So I think ask me in July and I might know a little bit more.
Is that too far to look ahead at this moment right now?
I think it is, yeah. I think, like, realistically, we've had 5 training sessions, if you add up all the training sessions we've actually had, so that's not a lot. But I think the fact that the players are really trying in terms of what we're asking of them, that's really pleasing. I think they're having a go, trying to keep possession, and then it's like just reminding them of like what they're good at and how we can play, and just sticking to those principles a little bit more when the game gets a little bit more open. So yeah, there is lots of work to do, but I think we're in a positive place.
Hey Casey, before the game, I asked you about Jade Rose. Goes out, scores her first goal. Has a good half. I imagine minutes restriction is why she comes out. What did you just was that what you expected from her in that sort of first half?
Yeah, I think, like, obviously Jade hasn't played for a long time, in terms of a competitive game. So I think for her to get a solid 45, be tested a few times is important. But obviously being able to use the ball and play, it was a very conscious decision to play 45 minutes because we've got another game. So it's spreading the minutes out across the centre backs and making sure that we protect her early so that she can build back in gradually.
You've talked about building depth, and we see some new faces step in, some players we haven't seen, but also we see someone like Julia who's battling for minutes in the squad, goes out, scores a goal. What do you make of just that balance of building depth in terms of players 25 to 30, but also within your 23 players battling for spots in that starting 11?
Yeah, I think what I've been able to do is have a look at different players in different positions. Obviously, Julia played less minutes today, but will play more minutes on Tuesday. So it's, I've got 2 games to balance. Julia's a fantastic player, technically very good in terms of the way she uses the ball. Please, she's finished her goal. And we're looking at like where can we get the best out of her. So throughout this year you might see her pop up in slightly different positions, and I want to assess of like how do we get our best players on the pitch in their best positions to help us be successful.
Just following on that, Casey, you're trying to figure out obviously combinations and players and things, and games like this give you the chance to kind of experiment and try different things around. How much further along have you feel you've found in terms of getting some questions answered in that regard, and like in your attack, and particularly say in your attacking midfield areas?
Definitely got some questions answered over the last 4 games. I think looking at different players who can utilise different skill sets, and I'm a big like horses for courses. There's different horses for different courses based on the opponent that we're playing against. I know this squad's been quite stable before and quite hard to break into, whereas I think I will always analyse the opponent and say, right, who do we need in this game that can hurt them, who can utilise the spaces that they're going to give us, and that might not always be the same players. So I want there to be competition and healthy competition, and I want to set players up to be successful.
With the next game against Argentina, the one thing I noticed was one-on-one, the athleticism of your players to theirs, especially if they had the ball and they were able to turn them and so forth. Those little things, and also closing them down quite quickly. You come away from that, it must be sort of in your mind of how you could even exploit Argentina even more on Tuesday, I would think.
Yeah, I think we can be more positive in 1v1 situations, to be honest. I think we got the ball wide in certain times, and there is an element of we look to connect, but I think there's an element of like, how can we go 1v1? How can we... And it was difficult to exploit them in behind the second half because they were so deep. So now we've got to play, and I'm like, bring the forwards lower. Then their back line has to come up, otherwise we can play between lines. And if we bring them up, then we can exploit behind. So we just got to be a little bit smarter about how we stay connected to build and have good options. And not risk possession in areas we don't need to. But I thought there was elements, and also there was elements defensively where we need to be better. We let them out too easy at times, so we can use our athleticism and our pressing in better ways.
Casey, you were talking about more fans at matches. There's an April, a May window, a June, July. Will there be several opportunities for those fans to come out to games in Canada to support the team?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
How many?
we're gonna be back home. There will be several, and I would really urge the fans to get out and support this team. I think obviously the more we can get support behind the team, the better, and it's exactly what the players deserve.
Awesome. We have one more question coming from Zoom. Shireen, please go ahead.
Hi, Casey. Congratulations.
Hello.
On the win tonight. Question about it. It seemed as if there was some tenacity up front that the players are getting more confident, more brave as you asked them to. But at the same time, there was untraditional breakdowns in the defensive, and there was turnovers, as you mentioned, that were unforced. What's the formula to balance that out? It doesn't have to be one or the other.
No, it's a combination of both. I think we want to be attacking, but we want to obviously make sure that we're very compact underneath the ball when we turn it over. And I think there's an element of counter-pressing needs to be better. Shrinking the field needs to be better. And also just an element of the 1v1 defending piece where we got beat sometimes and we didn't need to. So, yeah, I think you have to give up something sometimes to get something else. So we are focusing on attacking at the moment. We know the team can defend, but there will be definitely some reviewing on the chances that Argentina created that, to be honest with you, some of them come from our possession. So if we keep the ball better and we then counter-press better in terms of our angles of pressing and the way we go in, we will reduce those chances.
Alors, ça va être tout pour ce soir. That will be it for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.